Hello and welcome to Lunchtime Politics on Channels Television. I'm Millicent Walker. On the news this hour, the APC and President Buhari have closed their defense at the Presidential Elections Petitions Tribunal today, although they are asking the panel to grant them time to file their final address on behalf of the President. And with President Buhari yet to announce portfolios for the ministers designate after their screening, Nigerians already have priority areas for the new cabinet and the president to focus on. Plus, the federal government says it will deploy technology to fight the new security threat in the land after meetings with traditional rulers. Welcome everyone to the program. Now we kick off this noon from the courtrooms where it appears all has been said and done by the different parties in the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal. Counsel to President Muhammadu Buhari, Mr. Wole Olanipekun, and that of the All Progressives Congress, the APC, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, they've closed their defense in the petition filed by the People's Democratic Party and its presidential candidate, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, at the Presidential Election Tribunal. In closing his case, Mr. Olanipekun told the tribunal that with issues properly laid before the court, the team has come to the decision that it is time for them to restrict the legal duel in the court, saying that they were very satisfied with the evidence they had laid before the tribunal. On his part, the counsel to the APC, Mr. Fagbemi, said ordinarily he should open his case today, but having reviewed all evidence adduced, there was no point to indulge in any overkill of the exercise. He announced that the APC was satisfied with the cross-examination and other documents tendered in the case. Both parties thereafter asked for 3 days, beginning from Monday, to file their final addresses. Let's get more from our correspondent, Amaka Okafor, who's covering that for us. Amaka.
The Presidential Election Tribunal resumed today for the President to continue his defense against the petition filed by the People's Democratic Party and its presidential candidate, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. But his counsel, Mr. Wole Olanipekun, informed the tribunal that he will today on presenting witnesses and evidence before the tribunal in defense of the petition. According to him, the evidences adduced by the petitioners and himself in the last 2 days are enough for the second respondent, who is the president, and his position was his line of reasoning was told by the counsel to the All Progressive Congress, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, who also decided not to call any witnesses or tender any document, but rely on the witnesses called by the president and the petitioners in the case. And after making that application, Mr. Fagbemi also asked the tribunal to allow them to file their final written addresses from Monday instead of tomorrow, which had been agreed upon at the end of the pre-trial hearing. But the tribunal still maintains that they will file their final addresses within 3 days upon receipt of the response from the respondents, and if the respondents so choose to, reply on points of law 2 days after receiving the response of the petitioners, and then the tribunal adjourns to the 21st of August, I beg your pardon, for all parties to adopt their final written addresses. Amaka Okafor, Channels Television News.
Thank you, Amaka. And policy decisions by the federal government. Well, President Muhammadu Buhari, he has expressed concern over the persistent gridlock in Apapa, Lagos State. Speaking when he received the leadership of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry at the Presidential Villa, Abuja, the president promised to work
on highways and other strategic locations so that activities in some of these hidden places can be exposed, more effectively monitored, and open to actionable review.
Giving significant boost to the nation's security apparatus is also among other interventions.
Let me be very clear about our firm resolve to change the security architecture of Nigeria It is one of top priorities for this government. But we won't be able to achieve this goal without the support and input from you, our royal fathers.
The monarchs are leaving this meeting with a lot of confidence in the new plans.
If we want to start community policing now, if they give it to politicians, it's not going to work per se. So that's the reason why they're involving us. With all this, we believe there will be a lot of that reduction in tension going on in Southwest.
Separately, the president met with His Majesty Ogiame Ekenwole, the Olu of Warri, in his office. The subject of security is also on the front burner as he discloses his advice to the president.
We advised him that the security situation in the country now is too tense. I should do everything possible to address them, particularly on the Benin or Express Road. Each time I have the opportunity of meeting the president, the vice president, I've always appealed that the two port authority in my kingdom particularly should be addressed. The port authority in the whole of the Niger Delta area, Warri Port, Kuku Port, they are there underutilized. Meanwhile, Lagos is overutilized.
The president is equally assuring Nigerians that the military would be deployed to complement the police using Air Force assets and other intelligence to combat insecurity. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
The presidency has commended the Senate for the expeditious approach it adopted in confirming the ministerial nominees forwarded to it by the president. In a statement by the senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, Mr. Gabashehu, the president says Nigerians want results, and with this list of ministers, the presidency is confident that the needed results will be delivered. He also adds that specific portfolios shall be assigned with the inauguration of the cabinet. The statement adds, quote, "This is a fine, capable and committed group of individuals. Working together, they shall help achieve what we all want and labor towards, a secure, prosperous, corruption-free nation in which nobody is left behind and talent can flourish," end of quote. The statement explains that the executive approaches the 9th National Assembly with a renewed spirit of openness and enthusiasm, adding that with the renewed vigor from the legislators, the ministers and the executive, change can be unleashed on the nation. Well, the National Youth Council of Nigeria, they are asking the president to consider appointing the youth as heads of agencies and parastatals in his administration. The president of the council, Comrade Mustafa Abdullahi, made this appeal at a news conference. He expressed concern on the exclusion of young people in the ministerial list. Nevertheless, he's urging the ministers to dispense their duties judiciously to build a convenient society for the young generation.
We are not happy that the young people are not in that list, but we are using this opportunity to appeal to the Mr. President to make sure he consider the young people in the head of agency and parastatals, so that to encourage the young people build a better new leadership that we are coming for as a people that, okay, Nigeria, we want young people in governance. The speed in screening the ministerial nominees show that they are ready for this job because there's no delay. I believe with that speed, the minister that have been screened will do the needful, will be up and doing in their job to encourage the society, the government of the day. We have a plan that immediately after they assign their portfolio, we will visit the minister, make sure the writing is done in their office, and make sure we synergize, we interface with them to see how we can work together.
The Nigerians definitely have their eyes on the president's cabinet, and expectations are quite high on what exactly will happen afterwards, especially their portfolios. Well, joining us via our Abuja studios is a Center for Democracy Development, a non-governmental organization, the programs manager there, Mr. Shamsuddin Yusuf. We'd like to thank you for joining us at this time. I mean, we have the comrade there saying young people should be involved. But to you, now that the ministers have been confirmed by the Senate, while we're awaiting their portfolios, what are the priorities you think Nigerians need, policy priorities at this time?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I would like to join our voice with the advocacy for youth inclusion. I think it's quite unfortunate that the president didn't even include any youth in the ministerial list. But going to your question, I think the priorities are quite clear. One thing that we know that is quite fundamental is the issue of the economy. Job creation and unemployment is one of the key things in the Buhari survey that we conducted and we recently released. Most Nigerians are actually demanding for the need for government to be quite proactive and adopt practical approach to revamping the economy. One of the key things is the unemployment, as we are actually mentioned. We see that, you know, going up on yearly basis, and that's quite unfortunate because even if you look at all the indicators, it shows that not that there's new jobs are not created, but the most fundamental thing is that we have new set of youth, a lot of youth coming out of the universities, you know, a lot of people turning into the youthful population, and you know, and gainfully employable without getting any job. It means that the economy itself lacks the capacity of providing adequate jobs for a lot of teeming youths who are ready to offer the labor. The
Buhari meter,
is quite fundamental.
Mr. Yusuf, walk us through the Buhari meter, because we're seeing some figures, the economy pegged at 52%. Explain that. And this is also looking at the budget that we have for 2019 and some of the issues you've mentioned, the economy, job opportunities. Do we need to wait till the end of 4 years to see better results?
No, it's something that government needs to start thinking about today. Job creation is quite fundamental, and we can talk about that without saying what kind of interventions we need to, you know, adopt to address a lot of challenges that the MSME is facing. Because if the labor market is not that sufficient enough in terms of employing a lot of youth to provide the labor should also, the youth should also be given that capacity. Create an enabling environment for them to use their skill set, for self-reliant, to engage in things that they can independently offer to the economy, for the economy to grow. So it's quite fundamental that the issue of MSMEs, a government looks into that direction. And one thing that we have been clamoring for is that subsector of the economy cannot grow without government addressing the epileptic power supply in the country. There's a need for government to rethink its approach. We have that, as a country, we demand, we require almost 100 gigawatts to sustain the economy. But what we even have, which is quite less than 14 gigawatts, does not even have a capacity to generate enough power. We don't have infrastructure in place. We don't have the capacity to even generate as high as 7 to 8 gigawatts to utilize the capacity because of gas constraint, the deficiency in the area of infrastructure development, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of issues that government needs to deal with, and we don't need to wait for 4 years.
Okay.
Government needs to, I think, immediately the ministers are giving their portfolio, it is quite fundamental for them to do an assessment of where we are as a nation.
Let's leave it at that.
What kind of practical approach.
Let's leave it at that. We'd like to thank you, Mr. Shamsuddin Yusuf, Project Manager for CDD.